Good morning. It's a Wednesday. We're going to make it. See that light at the end of the tunnel? It is not an oncoming train. All right. 7:30 in the morning. How you doing? All right. If you're up there in northwestern Montana, you're looking at some snow this morning. Above 5,000, 6,000 feet, 5,500 feet, I think is what they were saying. So winter weather advisories there and some high wind warnings with that on the east side of the Rockies. So yeah, watch out for that. Is that a freeze warning there in northeastern Oregon? I think that color matches that freeze warning. Meanwhile, it's a red flag warning for Wyoming into South Dakota and Nebraska with some gusty winds today. Fog this morning, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, a little bit of Iowa. Still those flooding concerns in New Mexico. The heat has now traveled east, so a little patch there. Missouri, Illinois border, but Indiana, Ohio, into West Virginia, and then further east is where we're looking at that excessive heat. And a little bit of fog, South Carolina into Georgia. Here's your surface for today, and that's where we see the severe weather expected. Ohio, Pennsylvania, through New Jersey and Delaware, and also up in the Dakotas. There's your snow for northwestern Montana and into the Rockies there with our system that's moving along the Canadian border. Monsoon still on Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. Some rain along the Gulf Coast. And tomorrow's surface, a cold front's going to be pushing eastward in the northern plains ahead of it. We could see severe weather and also some heavy rain, flash flooding possible. Minnesota, Wisconsin, here in Iowa, parts of Nebraska. So that cold front's kind of the big story. When we get into the day Friday, it's even further east, but it's also pressing south through the plains. So out ahead of it is where we see the scattered showers and storms behind it, of course, the cooler weather. With that front approaching today, our best chance for the really bad severe weather, the worst of it anyway, will be in the Dakotas, but also severe from the Ohio Valley to the East Coast. And where would the tornadoes be today? Well, it's just a slight risk, but the Dakotas is our bullseye for that 2% risk of some spin ups. For tomorrow, that severe weather shifts further to the east with that front moving further to the east. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Iowa with the best chance for severe weather on Thursday. Highs today, still hot. Mississippi River Valley, Tennessee River Valley. That's where the triple digits are, but even 100 way up there, and I don't know if that's Charleston or Beckley, West Virginia, but 100, 97, Lexington, Kentucky. So 90 stretching all the way to the coast, it looks like. There's a 99 in Raleigh. So that's where the hot stuff is. You have to go pretty far north to get into the 80s and even a few 70s for like the UP of Michigan or northern Michigan or northern Maine. The coolest stuff, of course, is where it's snowing this morning in northwestern Montana, but it's still hot in the desert southwest, even the central valleys of California on the hot side. Tomorrow morning's lows, widespread 70s to start the day for the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. But you can see where the cold front is because behind the front, lows drop off 60s, 50s, 40s in the northern plains. And, of course, our system, again, moving along the Canadian border. So, places like the Pacific Northwest, a pretty cool start to tomorrow morning with widespread 40s here, 30s with elevation. So even 47 there in central Nevada. Tomorrow's highs, well, we see that front making a little bit of progress, northern plains into the Great Lakes. That's where we see our 70s, even 60s. Ahead of that is where we're seeing 90s. And our 100s are fewer and a little further east, but 102 for Nashville, just waiting for that relief. It's coming, but you're still a couple of days away, so hang in there. Your 48-hour rainfall looks like this, and it could be pretty heavy. This is mainly tomorrow for Iowa and for Wisconsin and for Minnesota. So that's where we should see the heaviest rain in the next couple of days, a good 1.5 inch widespread. But not to be left out, Virginia, Pennsylvania, parts of Ohio could see 1.5 inches, 2 inches, maybe even more. And near Houston, some pretty heavy rainfall. A lot of it's off the coast, but even in town, you could get an inch or two. So watch out for that. Southern Louisiana as well. And then for the 24-hour snow, I did. I put the map in. 24-hour snow. What is that? A couple 3 inches up here in the mountains of northwestern Montana. Enjoy. All right, we're going to take a look here at the European model real quick. And we're starting this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So this is an hour or so ago. Here is our low. You see some snow up here on the Canadian side of the border. And, our cold front is right here in central parts of Montana. And that will be pressing southward, and eventually the cool air will be spreading southward too. So did I say southward twice? Eastward and southward. I get to talking so fast, sometimes I get a little dyslexic sometimes, and also I'll just trip over my words. But anyway, here's the snow this morning for Montana and Alberta, and a little bit of rain to start your day along the coast of Texas, the Texas Gulf Coast. All right, we go through today, and we do see some scattered showers moving into central Texas, west Texas. They'll take that if they can get it. Some scattered light rain showers all the way up here into the Ohio Valley and up into New York State, parts of Michigan, but our main low here making eastward progress. Oh, we see a little bit of rain in New Mexico as well. So where are we here? 21Z, we'll subtract 5, 16, minus 12 is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Central Time, somewhere in there. And we get into later in the afternoon. Here's our severe weather in the Dakotas. And this evening, we see that persist as our low makes further progress to the east. Some chilly rain on the backside for Montana. Rains continuing along the Texas Gulf Coast, all the way down Corpus Christi, all the way up to Houston. And then as we get into tonight, here's midnight right here. Those scattered showers ahead of the front moving into Minnesota. A few showers in Iowa, widely scattered. Some heavier rains up here in West Virginia, and still raining along the Texas Gulf Coast. That's why we have that bullseye for an inch and a half or more for some. As we get into the day on Thursday, that's tomorrow. Let me back up. See, here's the front, and as it presses to the east into the hot, moist air, we just see those storms blowing up along and ahead of that front. So we're talking Nebraska, Iowa, and Minnesota, and even a little bit of Kansas. And that just lines up and moves on through. So it's going to be brief, but there could be some heavy rain, lots of lightning, gusty winds, that sort of thing. And that front stretches all the way up into Canada. So that's where we're expecting the rough stuff for tomorrow. And then as that front continues to the east, those showers move into Wisconsin, into the Great Lakes. Now the front starts pushing southward as we get into the day on Friday. So this is Friday morning, and you see we're starting to see more showers and storms for eastern New Mexico into West Texas, also Arkansas into Louisiana, East Texas, and we see more showers over here in the Carolinas and Virginias. And then that cold air, but the low is lifting northward. So here's James Bay. And so here's the cold front, and out ahead of it and along it is where we're seeing those showers and storms as we're getting into Friday night here. And then as the low continues to press off to the northeast, the cooler air is slowing down its southward progress because the low is moving more northward instead of straight eastward. So the push behind it is not going to be as strong on the southern end here. But we're seeing that front stalling out a little bit, and that's where we're seeing showers and storms in West Texas into Oklahoma. And then as we get into the day on Saturday, we're going to see kind of a lot of rain in here all the way from Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, into the Mississippi River Valley, into the Tennessee River Valley, into the Ohio River Valley, and up into northeast. So this front bringing a cool change to the plains and some wet weather. Some people really need it. Of course, here in the south, they could use more, and it's not quite getting to you. by the end of this radar loop as we get into the day on Saturday. So that's kind of how things are getting a little more exciting. All right, your highs on Saturday. As that front is pushing down through the plains and further into the Great Lakes, we see a lot fewer 90s, although there are some 90s in the southeast here. But the hundreds are gone off of the map, except for the desert southwest. And 80s now for West Texas. So we'll take that, even mid-upper 80s for places like Houston and up into Shreveport. Meanwhile, in the plains, it's mostly 80s. There's a couple near 90s, but 80s for Iowa and 70s, even 60s as we get into the northern plains, the Great Lakes, and parts of New England. Still hot on the West Coast, though. 95 for Eugene and Portland, 100 for Medford. So that's kind of hot. But that'll be cooling off as we get into Sunday. 80s is more like it for Western Oregon, still on the warm side. And 90s to near 100 return for the interior parts of the Pacific Northwest as high pressure builds in behind that low. That's, what is that, 103 for Moscow, Idaho, something like that. And we see 107 for Phoenix, so that's hot. The hot weather in the southeast, some relief for you finally. Nashville in the 80s. Most of Texas in the 80s, 92 for San Antonio, but everyone else, there you go. And lots of 70s into the northern plains, 60s, and a few 50s when you get up there in, say, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan. So much cooler for the northern plains and cooler also for parts of New England and along the Appalachian Mountains. And then the 6 to 10 day temperatures kind of reflect those changes. So the coldest air, now Great Lakes to the northeast, and the hottest air now moving into the Pacific Northwest, and a nice cool off for Texas, well deserved. And you too, Tennessee. And then we get for the next 6 to 10 days for precipitation. And the wet stuff is along the south, and Texas, the big winner here. Also increasing rains, it looks like, for the Pacific Northwest, so a slight chance of above average precipitation. Dry for the Great Lakes. So there you have it, a quick look of your forecast for the next few days through the weekend and beyond. That's what we do here at the Weather Mic. Thank you for tuning in. Yesterday's video was number 1 out of 10 with 30 views. So thank you for that. And we'll do it again tomorrow, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Thanks for tuning in, the Weather Mic.